value import preview from the components. I'm gonna move it here. And go ahead and give it a value of chapter.description and put an exclamation point at the end. And now you're gonna have your HTML description rendered here. Excellent. Outside of this div, go ahead and add, if we have attachments.length, in that case, we're gonna go ahead and open a fragment. We're gonna render a separator here at the top. And then we're gonna open a div with a class name of p-4. Inside of that div, we're gonna run attachments.map. We're gonna get the individual attachment. We're going to open an href like that, and let's give it a key of attachment.id. Let's give it an href of attachment.url. Let's give it a target of _blank. And inside, we're going to open a paragraph and we're going to render attachment.name. And now let's go back to this element and let's give it a class name. Flex items-center p-3 w-full vg-sky-200 border text-sky-700 rounded-md hover underline, and give this paragraph a class name of line-clamp-1 and add a file icon from Lucid React. So I just imported the file icon. I'm gonna move it to the top. Great. And now I'm gonna click refresh here. And it seems like it's not rendering any attachments. So let me just confirm that in my course, I actually have the attachments. So that's the first thing we have to do. All right, we have the attachments, and I just remembered, yeah. So we are not gonna load the attachments until we purchase a course, right? We don't want any files to be shown to students who have not purchased the course. So, right, we cannot see them now. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna enable this enroll button to actually open up Stripe. So we're gonna have to now set up our Stripe environment, add all the environment keys, create your store, and create some routes and hooks to do that. So let's go ahead and create a Stripe account and add some Stripe API keys. So go to stripe.com and find the login button and just enter your dashboard. Once you're inside of your dashboard, so as you can see, I already have a project here. So perhaps your screen is a little bit different. So I want you to find this store icon in the upper left corner and go ahead and scroll the way down and click on new account, right? Or this will be your default screen if you don't have any account, I believe. And create this account, I'm gonna call it LMS tutorial, like that, and select your country of operation, and just create an account. All right, so I'm just gonna zoom out so we can see what we're working with here. So I'm just gonna skip all of this, and I'm gonna click API keys for developers right here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click reveal test key, this one, right? And I'm gonna go ahead and copy it, so you can just click to copy. And let's go inside of our .environment file. And below the mux token, let's add stripe_API_key and paste it inside. Great. And I'm gonna leave the Stripe in my other browser tab. And I suggest you do the same because we're gonna have to create a webhook later on. So what I wanna do now is go inside of my terminal and install Stripe. So npm install Stripe like this, and then you can run your app again and just refresh your localhost if you do that. I'm gonna close everything and I'm gonna go inside of the lib folder and create a new file, stripe.ts. I'm going to import Stripe from Stripe package, which we just installed, and I'm going to export const Stripe util, which is going to be new Stripe, and I'm gonna pass in the key, which is process.environment. Well, it's exactly what you've written in your .environment file. So you can copy it from here and paste it here like that, and put an exclamation point at the end so it knows that it's here for sure. And let's go ahead and give it an API version, and you can just press on whatever it auto-completes for you, like that. And let's give it TypeScript option to be true. Great, so now we have our Stripe util. What we have to create now is the checkout route. So the checkout route is going to be the route which we trigger once we click on the enroll button right here. And that's going to be inside our app folder API, courses, individual course ID, and create a new folder checkout. And inside create a new file route.ts. And now let's write export asynchronous function post, which is going to have a request, and it's going to have params. And the params is an object which has a course ID as a string. Let's open a try and catch block. So I'm going to resolve the error first, and I'm going to console log course ID checkout and an error. So it doesn't matter that this is a typo, right? This is just for us. And then return new next response from next/server internal error with a status of 500. Let's go inside of the try block. And first thing I want to do is fetch the entire user. So I'm going to use await current user from clerk/next.js. And now let's write if there is no user, or if there is no user ID, or if there is no user dot email addresses $0 dot email address. So we need at least one email address for the user. In any of those cases, we're going to return new next response unauthorized with a status of 401. Great. So let me just expand my screen here so I can zoom in. And now let's attempt to fetch the course we are trying to purchase. So const course await db.course.findUnique. And I have to import db, so import db from add/libdb, like that. And let's add where id is params.courseID and is published is true, so we can only purchase published courses. Now let's check if we already have purchased this course. So const purchase await db.purchase.findUnique where user ID underscore course ID matches. So user ID is user.id and course ID is params.courseID. Great. And now we're going to write, so I'm just going to scroll down here. If we have a purchase, return new next response already purchased with a status of 400. If we don't have a course, return new next response not found with a status of 404. Great. And now let's define the line items for the Stripe checkout page. So const line underscore items is a type of Stripe. So import that from the Stripe package. Like this, I'm going to move it to the top. So Stripe from Stripe, and go ahead and write Stripe dot checkout dot session create params dot line item and add an array. And in our case, it's going to be an array, but it's only going to hold one item inside. So quantity is going to be 1, price data is going to have a currency of US dollars, product data is going to have a name, which is course.title, description, which is course.description, and we can put an exclamation point because we know that if it's published, it needs to have a description, and unit amount, which is going to be math.round course.price times 100. Great. And now that we have that, let's go ahead and let's create the Stripe customer. So let Stripe customer await db.stripe_customer.findUnique where user ID is user.id, and let's select Stripe customer ID to be true. Excellent. And now let's check if we don't have a Stripe customer. So that's completely fine if we don't. So if we don't have a Stripe customer, we're just going to create a new one. So this is someone purchasing for the first time. So let's write const customer await Stripe, but this time from /lib/Stripe, right? So make sure you have this imported, Stripe from /lib/Stripe. And then down here, what you're going to do is you're going to write stripe.customers.create email user.email addresses 0.email address. And now let's define the Stripe customer in our database. So Stripe customer await db.stripe_customer.create data user ID to be user.id, and Stripe customer ID is going to be customer.id. Great. And now we can go outside of this if clause and we can write const session to be await stripe.checkout.sessions.create customer is Stripe customer.Stripe customer ID. We add the line items, which is a constant we created right here above, line items. So we can just pass it like this. Mode is going to be payment. Success URL is going to be open backticks process.environment.next_public_app_URL /courses/individual course ID / and it's just going to write success equals 1 like this. So this is the entire line. And you can duplicate this line for the cancel URL. And this is going to say canceled to be 1 like that. And metadata. This is extremely important. So don't forget the metadata. Metadata is going to be an object where we add a course ID to be course.id and user ID to be user.id. And now let's quickly go inside of inside of environment file and add this process environment variable. So below this, add that, and I'm just going to write HTTP //localhost 3000. So just like this, no slash at the end. Perfect. Now that we have that, we can go ahead and return next response.json URL session.url. So let me explain why is it so important that we have this metadata. Well, what are we actually doing when we call this route? We are not creating a purchase here. We are creating a customer, but we don't know when the payment will succeed, right? Because they have to do in real world. So users have to authenticate with their bank that they're doing an online purchase, right? So we don't exactly know when that's going to happen. So the reason we are adding the metadata is that when the purchase goes through, so when the user authorizes it, the Stripe is going to throw us back a webhook using this metadata. And then using that metadata in the webhook, we are going to know what payment just went through, right? Using that metadata, we're going to know, oh, okay, so this what I just received in my webhook is this user purchasing this course. So that's why this metadata is so important. Excellent. And now what I want to do is I want to set up my Stripe CLI webhook, right? So let's go inside of developers right here. And let me just zoom out so you can see where this is, right? So inside of your Stripe right here. So let me just try and see what you're going to see. You have to find the developers button basically. And once you're in the developers button, go ahead and find webhooks. And in here, you're going to click test in a local environment. First thing you're going to have to do is download the CLI to set up Stripe. So just click on this link if you don't have the CLI. They have instructions for Windows, for Mac, and for Linux. Once you have the Stripe CLI, you're going to be able to type Stripe in your terminal. So this is not going to work unless you click on download the CLI and set it up. And now let's follow these steps. So first thing we have to do is do the Stripe login. So I'm going to open my terminal here and I'm going to open a new one. So keep your app running. I'm going to write Stripe login And as you can see, I have the URL here, which I can either click on or I can press enter. And that is going to open that URL inside of my browser. And as you can see here, I have a pairing code polite-beauty-1-valor. And I just have to confirm that it's the same one here. So it's me who is trying to connect to my Stripe dashboard. If it's you, if the code matches, just go ahead and click allow access. Great. And now you're inside and connected. And now, right here, you should see the completed button for this first step. The second thing we have to do is we have to add a mock, like a dummy webhook, right? So copy the second step. And let's go ahead and paste that here. Let me just zoom out so you can see this. All right. So you have to modify this to be forward to localhost 3000/API/webhook. Don't forget to put the /API and don't mess up the port. So this needs to be exactly where you're running your application. We don't have the webhook route yet, but we're going to create it. And this is where it's going to be. So just press enter. And now you have your webhook signing secret. So copy this like that. And now we have to add that inside of the environment file. So just copy this bold text right here. Keep that terminal running. And now let's go inside of our .environment file. And right here add stripe_webhook_secret and paste it in here. Great. So make sure there are no spaces at the end or at the beginning. So it just needs to be exactly what you saw in the terminal right here. So just exactly as much as this. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and let's revisit. Let's create our webhook route now, right? So go inside of the app folder, API, and create a new folder, webhook. And inside, create a new file, route.ts. Go ahead and import Stripe from Stripe. Go ahead and import headers from next/headers. Go ahead and import next response from next/server. Go ahead and import the Stripe util from add/lib/stripe and import the database util like that. Let's export a synchronous function post, which is going to have a request, which is a type of request. Let's get the body. So const body is await request.text. Let's get the signature. Const signature is headers.get stripe-signature as string, lowercase string. Great. Now let's define the event, which is a type of stripe.event. And now let's open a try block where we're gonna attempt to construct the event using the signature. So event is webhooks.construct event. Let's pass in the body. Let's pass in the signature. And let's pass in process.environment.stripe_webhook_secret. So double check that you have this in your environment file, right? You need to have Stripe webhook secret, and you can just paste it here like that and put an exclamation point at the end. Excellent. And in the catch block, let's get the error, which is a type of any, and let's return new next response. And I'm just going to use backticks here to write webhook error.message with a status of 400. Great. And now below that, let's get the session. Const session is event.data.object as stripe.checkout.session. Let's get the user ID from the metadata. So this is what I was talking about. This is why metadata is important. Const user ID is session $metadata $user ID. Const course ID is session $metadata $course ID. And now let's type if event.type is checkout.session.completed. If we don't have user ID or if we don't have a course ID, in that case, we cannot finish this webhook, right? So this is why it's so important that we pass that inside of our checkout route. So that's why I emphasized in this checkout route that we add the metadata like that, because otherwise we don't know what we just received in this webhook, right? This webhook works asynchronously, out of our control, right? It's just at one point it's just gonna get received to us. So that's why we need to have the user ID on the course ID. If we don't have it, we have to return new next response, and we have to pass in another webhook error missing metadata with a status of 400. Otherwise, if we have those two, we can finally create our purchase. So await db.purchase.create data course ID, which is course ID, user ID, which is user ID, and that's it. And in here, you can write else, return new next response, webhook error, unhandled event type. And let's log that type, so event.type. And one important thing, give it a status of 200, right? So you have to be very cautious in the Stripe webhook when passing 400 status errors. If your webhook has too many 400 status errors, Stripe is going to turn off that webhook because it's obviously not working as intended. So that's why we are not gonna throw 400 just because of an unhandled event type, right? So we're gonna log this for ourselves so we know that we are receiving some events which we don't want, but it doesn't matter. We don't handle them, and that's not technically an error for the webhook. We don't have to break the webhook. So we're gonna pass 200 for it instead of 400. Great. And then at the end, because of that very same reason, we're also gonna add return new next response null with a status of 200. Excellent. So we completed our webhook route. So now we're gonna go back inside of our course enroll button. So let's find it inside of the app folder, course, chapter ID, components, course enroll button here. And let's go ahead and let's add const is loading and set is loading from use state. So import that from React. I'm just gonna move it right here. And now let's write const on click to be an async arrow function, which is gonna have a try and catch block. In the catch block, let's use the toast from React Hot Toast. So I'm also gonna move that here. So it's gonna have toast.error, something went wrong. In the finally, we're gonna have set is loading to false. Set is loading, is it this one? Cannot find name, why? Oh, async, like that. Okay, I misspelled async. And in try block, set is loading is gonna become true. And in here, we're gonna get the response for the checkout. So const response is equal to await Axios from Axios. So make sure you add this import as well. Axios.post backticks /API /courses /individual course ID /checkout. And then we're gonna do window.location.assign response.data.url. And then let's add that on click here. And let's disable the button if we are loading. Excellent. And now you can click done here, and you're gonna have to refresh this page. So just make sure you refresh that and keep your terminal running where you have your Stripe CLI. So in here, you're gonna see all the logs, successful and failed. So you're gonna know what's going on with your webhook. So let's try and purchase this course right now. So I'm gonna click enroll, and let's see if that's gonna work. I should get redirected to the Stripe checkout page, and there we go. As you can see, I'm redirected back here, and now I have to fill in this information. So you can use this credit card to trigger a success from Stripe, right? So this is a dummy credit card which just goes 4242, 4242, 4242, and 4242. And for the rest, it doesn't matter, right? So it's just dummy numbers, and you can put whatever you want here. Just for this one, make sure that's in the future, right? And if you do a different credit card, this is not going to work, right? So make sure that you have the correct credit card. And now let's finally click pay. And I forgot to do something. So we have 401s inside of my terminal here. As you can see, it's still locked, right? So we made a mistake in the development. I forgot something. So all of my events yield 401, which means unauthorized. What I forgot to do was go inside of my middleware, and I forgot to add the webhook inside of public routes. So let's go and add public routes, an array API/webhook. Great. And now Stripe can safely access our webhook. And you might be wondering, well, isn't it dangerous that our /API/webhook is now not secured by authentication? Well, take a look and visit the webhook route. So our webhook route is very much secured using the Stripe signature and using our process environment. So we have to construct the event. If we fail doing that, we throw an error, right? So you don't have to worry about it. It needs to be publicly accessible for Stripe to work. And let's try this one more time. So I'm gonna go and prepare my terminal here so I can see if I'm having errors or success. Let's go ahead and click enroll one more time. In the checkout, use the working 42424242 credit card. Enter some fake information here and click pay. And let's see if you're gonna get, and there we go, everything is green, 200, 200, 200 right here. And now, as you can see, I can see my attachments here. I can go ahead and visit the next chapter. So this is the next chapter description. There we go. Amazing, amazing job. So you just completely finished the Stripe checkout. So in order to test Stripe checkout, just remember you have to have your local CLI running here. When we deploy, we're gonna add that to Stripe configuration, but locally we have to test it right here because Stripe doesn't have access to localhost, right? This is not a public domain. This is just on our local environment. So that's why we have to use a local Stripe CLI to simulate a webhook. So if you're gonna like take a rest now and shut down your application, just remember when you start working on this again, you have to run your application using Stripe listen forward to localhost 3000 /API/webhook. Or if you're gonna wrap up with the tutorial, just don't shut down the Stripe CLI. Perfect. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna go ahead and create the button which I wrote to do, which is going to change the progress of this course, right? We can mark it as complete, and we're gonna modify the video player to also mark it as complete if we reach the end of the video. And what's left to do is also on the last video add some confetti, and we are getting closer and closer to finishing the entire app. Great, great job. So now that we have purchased this course, let's revisit our our course sidebar here, and let's add the progress we've made in this course. Since we've purchased it, we can finally calculate the progress of how many chapters we've completed. So I'm gonna go ahead and close everything. And I'm gonna go and find the course sidebar, which is inside of the app folder, course, components, and right here we should have the course sidebar. So go ahead and open that one. And as you can see here, I left a comment, check purchase and add progress. So as you can see here, I have the purchase. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this to be a conditional. If we have a purchase, in that case, we're going to render a div with the class name, margin top 10, and we're going to render the course progress component. If we save, we're gonna get an error because we don't have that component. But let's already pass in the variant success and value progress count. So this is gonna be a reusable component because we're also gonna use it inside of our course card. So let's create this component, and we're gonna do that in our global components folder because as I just said, it's gonna be reusable. So course-progress.psx. Great. And let's go ahead and export const course progress component. And let's return a div course progress. Let's go back inside of the course sidebar, and we can now import it from as/components/course-progress. So I'm going to move it with the database here. All right. And if you refresh in the sidebar now, you should see the text course progress. We're going to turn that into an actual component now. So let's first give it an interface. Interface course progress props, which is going to have a value, which is a number, a variant, which is going to be either default or success. And we're also going to give it an optional size, which is either going to be default or small. All right, now let's go ahead and append those props here. So course progress props. Let's write a value, variant, and a size. Great. And now let's create some constants here. Actually, we can do that outside, right? So const color by variant is going to be an object. If it's default, it's going to be text-sky-700. If it's success, it's going to be text-emerald-700. You can copy and paste this entire constant and change this one to size by variant. And this one on default is going to be text-small, but on small is going to be text-extra small. And let's just fix this typo to success with 2 C's, like that. Perfect. Now let's go inside and let's modify this to have the progress component, which I forgot to add. So we have to go inside of the terminal. Like that, npx chatcn-ui at latest add progress. So that's the component we're going to add. It's called progress. Install the package. And after it's installed, npm run dev your app again and just refresh your localhost. Now inside, we're going to add the progress component from /UI progress, like that. So just make sure you imported the progress, and I'm just going to change this to /components UI progress like this. And let's give it a class name of h-2. Let's give it a value of value like that. And already you should see a progress bar right here. So it's very light, so it's not visible yet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go inside of the progress component, and I'm going to add it some variants. So let's go inside of the UI folder. So instead of components UI, progress.tsx right here. Right now it doesn't have any variants. So we're going to extend this chatcn component to use some variants, right? So const progress variants is going to be CVA from class variants authority. Let's move it to the top, and let's also import type variant props from it. All right. So it's going to be CVA, and it's going to accept h-full, w-full, flex-1, bg-primary, and transition-all. Open an object, type variants, and type variant inside. Default one is going to be bg-sky-600. Success is going to be bg-emerald-700. And give it default variants, variant default, like that. Perfect. And now let's use this progress variant inside of the progress primitive indicator right here. So instead of this class name, we can now remove that, because if you look, it's exactly the same as the one we defined here. So we're gonna preserve these styles, but we're going to combine it with cn, and then we're gonna add the progress variants, and inside we're gonna go ahead and pass in the variant. Now we don't have the variant right here yet, so let's go ahead and modify this progress props here. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna define new props here. So let's write export interface progress props is going to be extends react.html attributes HTML div element, and let's add a comma here, and let's write variant props type of progress variants, and an empty object at the end. And now let's write a type combined progress props, like that, to be progress props. This is supposed to be progress props, my apologies. So this interface is progress props. So combine progress props and react.component props without the ref, like that. So let me just zoom out so you can see it, which is going to have a type of progress primitive.root with capital R, like this. So if you think you've messed this up or you can get the result, you can always just copy it from my source code and copy the entire UI progress.tsx. Great. And now we have to add this instead of this one right here. So just delete this one and instead just add the combined progress props, right? And now after the value, also extract the variant. And there we go. We now have no more errors inside. And let's go back to the course sidebar now, to course progress, and let's pass in the variant now because we can, and variant as well. There we go. Perfect. So now that we have that, let's go below the progress and let's add a paragraph, which is going to render math.round value %, outside of it, %complete. And let's give it a class name of cn. So just make sure to import cn from s/libutils. All right. So the value here, default value is going to be font-medium, mt-2, text-sky-700. And then we're going to write color by variant or default, and copy that and give it size by variant. And it's gonna be size or default, like this. Great. And now we have finished our course progress component. As you can see, now it says 0% complete right here. Perfect. So what I want to do now is I want to also add that to the course card. So let's go ahead and exit this. And in the browse right now, I think it's the price. There we go. So we have to do progress component. Perfect. So all we have to do is go inside of the course card. So that is inside of our global components, I believe. Components, we have it right here, course card. And here where we have to do, let's remove the div and let's render the course progress from /course progress. So make sure you import that, and I'm going to change that to add/components. So we have the course progress. Let's give it a size of small, a value of progress, and let's give it a variant to be dynamic. So if progress is 100% complete, in that case, it's going to be success. Otherwise, it's going to be default. And there we go. Now you can see that it no longer price displayed here. Instead, it says 0% complete. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and let's create a little button here, which is going to trigger completing a specific chapter. So let's go back inside of our chapter ID page. So I'm going to close everything here. Let's go inside the app folder, course ID, chapters, chapter ID, page.tsx right here. And in here, you can see that I have a conditional here. So we had the course enroll button, and now I'm going to remove this div. And instead, I'm going to render course progress button. And let's pass in the chapter ID to be params.chapter_id. Let's pass in the course ID, params.course ID. Let's pass in the next chapter ID to be next chapter, !ID. And is completed is going to be a boolean of user progress !is completed. And now we have to create is completed, like that. And now we have to create the course progress button. So that's going to be inside of these components where the course enroll button is. So course-progress-button.tsx, like that. So let me just expand so you can see course-progress-button. All right. Let's mark it as use client. Let's export const course progress button, like that, and return a div saying course progress button. Go back to page.tsx and you can now import this button from /_ course progress button, the same way we did with the enroll button. And there we go, you can see now I have a text here, course progress button. So now let's finally add the interface for it so we can style it into a proper button. Interface, course progress button props are gonna have a chapter ID, which is a string, a course ID, which is also a string, is completed, which is an optional boolean, and next chapter ID, which is an optional string. So we might not have next chapter if we reach the end of the course, right? Now let's extract all of those props here. So course progress button props, chapter, course ID is completed, and next chapter ID. And instead of chapter, it should be chapter ID in the props, and same thing here, right? So I forgot that. And there we go. Now in this page where we render the course progress button, we no longer have any TypeScript errors here. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's style this button. So instead of div, it's going to be a button element from /components UI button, like that. And it's going to say if it is completed, it's going to say not completed, because it's going to indicate an action, right? So we do the reverse. If it's completed, the action is going to be not completed. So the user knows, okay, I have to click on this and then it's not going to be completed. Otherwise, it's going to be mark as complete. Great. And below that, let's render our dynamic icon. So for that, we have to define const icon is completed, question mark, X circle from Lucid React, otherwise check circle from Lucid React. So make sure you add those two, and I'm just going to separate these two imports. And then we can render that icon here, like that. It's a self-closing tag, and give it a class name of h-4, w-4, and ml-2, and give this button a type of button, and give it a variant is completed, outline, otherwise is going to be success, which we don't have yet. So what we have to do is we have to go inside of the button and we have to add the success variant. So let's go inside of button. So that's inside of our UI folder. So components UI button, the same thing we just did with the progress a while ago. And this one is going to be much simpler. So I'm just going to go inside of this big button variants. I'm going to find the last one, which is a link, and I'm going to add success. And I'm going to write bg-emerald-600 text-white hover bg-emerald 600/80, like that. And there we go. Now you can see how it's greenish color because we added the success, and it works right here because it's not completed. So it uses the success variant, which we just added right here. So it's just as easy as that. We added a new variant to the button. All right. And now what we have to do is give it some class names. So class name w-full on MD is going to be w-auto. So this is what it looks like on mobile, and on desktop, if you expand, there we go. It's a nice little button on the side here. So what I want to do now is I want to actually indicate an API call when we do this, right? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create some states, and I'm going to add some hooks here. So first, let's do const router to be use router from next/navigation. So make sure you add this import. All right. Below that, const confetti use confetti store, and we import that from add/hooks use confetti store. Below that, go ahead and add const is loading and set is loading from use state. So make sure you add use state and default to false. So let me just add import use state from React, like that. All right, and now let's write const on click to be an asynchronous function where we're going to try and catch. In the catch one, we're going to call toast from React hot toast. We're going to call toast.error. Something went wrong. In the finally block, we're going to set is loading to false. In the try block, we're going to set is loading to true. And now we're gonna do like conditional changes here. So await Axios from Axios, make sure you add that import. Axios is going to call .put /API /courses /individual course ID /chapters /individual chapter ID /progress. And it's gonna send the body of is completed to be the opposite of what we currently have. So it's gonna be like a toggle button, right? And then if it's not completed and if there is no next chapter ID, this means that we have reached the end of the course. So once user clicks this, all the chapters are going to be marked as complete because this is the last one. So in that case, we can do confetti.open. Sorry, on open, like that. And let's also go ahead and let's write if it's not completed. And if we do have next chapter ID, in that case, we are not firing the confetti, but what we are doing is router.push /courses individual course ID /chapters and next chapter ID, like that. And then at the end, let's do toast.success, progress updated, and router.refresh. Great. And now, if you go ahead and try and do this, you're gonna get an error because that one doesn't exist. Let me just refresh this. And let's see, have we actually added this on click? We haven't. Oh, so let's go ahead and copy this on click and add it to the button on click. And let's disable the button if we are loading. So the same thing we did with the enroll button, right? And now let's try and click mark as complete. And we're gonna get an error because we don't have that API route. So let's go ahead and create it. So we have to revisit our API folder. Right here, I'm gonna collapse everything. So I'm gonna go inside of the app folder, API, courses, course ID, chapters, chapter ID, and alongside publish and unpublish, I'm gonna create a new folder called progress. And inside, I'm gonna create a route.ts. And I'm gonna write export asynchronous function put, which has a request of type of request and has params. Params are an object which hold the course ID, which is a string, but also the chapter ID, which is also a string. Let's open our good old try and catch block here. Let's console log whatever is useful for us locally. So in my case, it's going to be chapter ID, progress, and an error, so I know what's going on. And let's return new next response from next/server, internal error, something, whoops, status 500. Like that. So make sure you added the next response import. In here, as always, we get the user ID from the out, like that. If we don't have the user ID, we can return new next response, unauthorized, with a status of 401. And while we are here, let's also extract is completed from await request.json. Let's go ahead and let's import the database. So db from /libdb. And now below this, let's write const user progress is await db.user progress. And we're going to use upsert. So it's either going to create it for the first time or it's going to update it. So .upsert where user ID, chapter ID matches the combination of user ID and chapter ID from params.chapter ID. Oops, chapter ID. And we're gonna pass in update is completed. But if it's our first time creating, we have to pass in the create option. So we're gonna create it using the user ID, chapter ID, which is params.chapter ID, and is completed like that. So now we handled both cases. If this is the first time we are creating the user progress, or if we are updating it. Perfect, exactly what we need for this use case. And return next response .json user progress. Excellent. And let's try it out now. So I'm going to refresh this. and I'm gonna click mark as complete. And let's see if that's gonna work. It says progress updated, and there we go. We are redirected to the next one. It says 25% complete, and you can see if I click back, I have a nice little icon. I have a banner saying that I've already completed this chapter, and I can toggle it as uncompleted. So I can click again, and there we go. Now my progress is back at 0. So I just wanna mark this as complete. So I can also confirm that in the browse page, it's also 25%, and it is. Perfect, so exactly what we wanted. Great, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm also gonna enable the video player to complete the chapter if it reaches the end. So let's revisit the video player component. So I'm gonna close everything here. And video player component is inside app folder, course, courses, course ID, chapters, chapter ID, underscore components right here, video player. And as you can see, on ended function is empty. So we're gonna go ahead and create it now. So besides this state, I'm also gonna add a router from use router, which I think we already have imported here. Yes, we do, great. And we also have the use confetti store imported. So we can add that as well. So const confetti use confetti store, excellent. And now let's write const on end to be an asynchronous function which has a try and catch. In the catch, it calls toast.error. Something went wrong. So make sure you have toast imported from React Hot Toast. In the finally block, actually we don't have a finally block in this one. We don't need it, right? Yeah, because nothing is loading per se. Yeah, perfect. So that's it for the catch. And now let's go if complete on end. So if we have that condition set from our props inside of the video player, only then we are going to complete this, mark this as completed when it reaches the end. So await axios.put, make sure you have Axios imported from your project, /API /courses /course ID /chapters /individual chapter ID /progress, like that, and pass in is completed to be always true. So we don't have to toggle it, right? Because if it's not true, we're not gonna enable, there is no way that the video can toggle it, right? The button makes sense because click once, it's completed, click another time and you mark it as uncompleted. But for finishing the video, it doesn't make sense. If it reaches the end, it's completed, right? It cannot toggle to uncompleted. So that's why we always know that we want it to be completed in this case. Great. And now, if there is no next chapter ID, we have to throw the confetti because we finished the entire course. So confetti.onOpen, like that. And let's write toast.success, progress updated. Let's do router.refresh. And lastly, let's check if we do have next chapter ID. In that case, what we're gonna do is router.push /courses /individual course ID /chapters and /next chapter ID. So just make sure you added the router here, and it seems like we did all of that correctly. So let's attempt to do this now. So first I'm gonna try it in this one, which is already completed. When it reaches the end, what it should do is redirect to the next video. So I'm gonna refresh and try again, just in case it wasn't saved. So let me go, I'm gonna move it to the end here. And once it reaches the end, it should redirect me to the next one. And it seems like it's not exactly doing that. So let's first check if it even works for submitting, right? So I'm gonna, oh yeah, I know why it doesn't work, because we forgot to pass in the on end, the same thing I forgot in the button. Okay, so on ended and pass in the on end function. My apologies, I completely forgot about it. So now let's try it again. Just for good luck, I'm gonna refresh. I'm gonna go ahead and visit the end of the video. And what it should do is just redirect me to the next chapter. And it seems to still not be doing that. Then again, let's go ahead and check if the completion of it works. Like this. There we go, so it does. Progress update. Oh yeah, only then it will redirect, right? So it's not gonna redirect if we already finished the course, right? It assumes that we're coming back to watch it purposely, right? But for the cases where it's first time completing, it's gonna redirect. And for the next one, what should happen is when I click mark as complete, since I finished all of this, the confetti should be thrown. Let's see, and there we go. We have a nice little confetti. Amazing, amazing job. So now if I go back in the browse page, I should also get 100% here. Amazing, amazing job. You finished the entire course preview right here. You have everything you need. And what we have to do now is we have to create the student dashboard. And one more thing we have to create is the individual teacher analytics to see how much each course has generated. Amazing, amazing job. The first one I want to do is I want to go and exit the teacher mode, and I want to resolve this student dashboard first. So right now that page is page.tsx inside of our app folder dashboard routes. It's this one, page.tsx, right? So a couple of things I want to do first. I don't want to keep it just like a file here because it's going to have some specific components for itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an organizational folder inside of routes called root, like this. And then I'll just drag and drop the page inside. So nothing URL-wise is going to change, but now my page.tsx file has its own little folder where I can add components. And as you can see, that triggered an unsaved file inside of .next types. So I'm just going to click on this file, I will go inside and click save, and I'm going to shut it down like that. And when you go back, make sure that you're not accidentally in the .next file. So don't go here, close this file and find your file inside of the app folder. I've seen some people make the mistake in my Discord channel where they send me screenshots of editing this file and they don't understand what's wrong. Well, because you don't edit in that one. That's just cache. Close this file, this folder, and go back to the app folder right here in the new root folder page.tsx. Excellent. Now what I want to do is remove this user button. We no longer need it. So this is now inside of our navbar, right? Let's also change this from home to be dashboard. Great. And what I want to do now is I want to create a function called get dashboard courses, which I'm going to use to load everything we need for the dashboard here, including our completed courses. So let's go inside. I'm going to close everything and go inside of the actions folder and create a new file, get-dashboard-courses.ts. Let's go ahead and let's write export const get dashboard courses like that. And now let's go ahead and let's take what we need inside, which is a user ID, which is a type of string. And what we're going to return is a promise. But inside of that promise, we're going to have to add specific type called dashboard courses. So I want to create a type for that. So type dashboard courses like that. It's going to have completed courses, which for now is going to be any and array, and courses in progress, which is also going to be any and array. We're going to change that right now. So I just wanted to prepare it like that. And then you can use the dashboard courses and add them in the promise result. So this is what it should look like in one line. Perfect. I'm going to zoom in now so you can see better. And above this type, let's now create a type course with progress. Whoops. Course with progress with category. That's going to be a course from Prisma client, and it's going to have a category, which is a category from Prisma client. It's going to have chapters, which is a chapter array, and progress, which is number or null, like that. And then we can replace this any with that proper type. Great. So now let's go back inside of here and let's first open a try and catch block. So I'm going to get the error and I'm going to console log get underscore dashboard courses and error. And let's return completed courses to be an empty array and courses in progress to be an empty array as well, like that. And let me just see if I did this incorrectly. I think this should work. I'm not exactly sure why it's throwing an error like this. Let's continue developing. Maybe it will make more sense later. Weird, yeah. Okay. And now what I want to do is I want to go back in the try block and let's write const purchased courses. Purchased courses like this. Await db, so import database. I'm just going to separate this imports. Great, and now that we have the database and we added await here, let's also write asynchronous here. Oh, that fixed the return error. Okay, great. And now let's write await db.purchase.findMany, where user ID is user ID, right? And we're going to select course, and inside of the course for this purchase, we're going to include category, so just write true, and we're also going to include chapters where is published is true. So we're going to use the purchase model, and we're going to use the relations to get the appropriate course, category, and the chapters. And now we're going to write const courses to be purchased courses dot map purchase, and we're going to return purchase dot course like that. And we're going to map that as course with progress with category, and it's going to be an array. So this is supposed to be in one line like this, right? So I'm just going to zoom in so you can see better. So basically, we're going to consider a course in progress the moment we purchase them, right? So we don't care if we completed 0%. The moment they are purchased, we're going to include them in our courses with progress. And now we're going to use some logic to separate courses which are 100% complete from those who have just been started. So let's write for let course of courses const progress to be await get progress from ./get progress, but I'm going to change that to actions get progress. All right, where were we? Right here, get progress, and pass in user ID and course.id. And then course progress is going to be progress, which we just fetched, right? And now let's filter out completed courses from the ones in progress. Const completed courses is going to be courses.filter, get the course, and write course.progress to be equal to 100, like this. And you can duplicate this and mark this courses in progress to be those that are not. So we can make it like, you can either put not 100%, or if you also want to cover for the null case of the progress, you can write the following: course.progress 0 is less than 100, like that. So this is gonna amount, so if the course progress is less than 100, and if there's no course progress, we're gonna count that as 0, like that. And then you can just go ahead and return completed courses and courses in progress, like that. And there we go, no more errors inside of this function. So now that we have that, we can go ahead back inside of our page.tsx, so which is now inside of our root folder here. And what I want to do is I want to mark this as an asynchronous function, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and import user ID from auth. So I got that from clerknext.js. And let's write if there is no user ID, return redirect with a slash like this. And now let's get await get dashboard courses, which we just created in our actions. And what it accepts is the user ID argument. And from it, let's go ahead and let's extract completed courses and courses in progress. Perfect. And now what I want to do is give this div a class name of padding 6 space -y -4. And inside, create a div with the class name of grid-calls-1, sm grid-calls-2, and gap-4. Like that. I'm going to create a div here, and I'm going to write to do info card, and I'm gonna copy this one more time. So these two divs are actually gonna be info cards. And below that, we're gonna go ahead. So outside of this div, which has its own grid, we're gonna go ahead and we're going to render courses list, which we already have. So this is gonna be reusable, right? From our add components courses list, we already use this in the search page. And in here, we're gonna pass in items to be a combination of courses in progress and completed courses, like that. So I made a choice that I first want to display courses in progress and then the completed courses, because I just assume that user is more interested in the ones that they're still doing rather than the ones they've completed. But you can, mix and match with that. Great, so now this looks very similar, right, to the search page. But what we're gonna do is add 2 info cards here on the top. So let's go ahead and let's create those info cards. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and replace this div to actually render an info card like this, and this bottom div as well. Let's just write info card and keep it in a grid. So this is what you have to do. Have this grid, this div, and an info card inside. And let's go ahead and give this info card some props. So it's gonna have an icon of clock from Lucid React. It's gonna have a label in progress, and I'm just gonna write it with a capital S, with a capital P. And number of items is going to be courses in progress.length. And make sure you have this clock imported from Lucid React. Perfect. And now let's create this info card. So I'm gonna go inside of this root folder and create a new folder _components and create a new file info-card.tsx. Great. Inside of this info card, export const info card and return a div info card. Go back to page.tsx and import it from /_components info card. So instead, it's in the very same folder, just right here. Perfect. Now we have to fix these types right here. So let's go ahead and give this div a class name of border rounded-md flex items-center gap-x-2 and padding 3. Let's go inside and let's add an icon badge component from add/components icon badge, which we created. Let's go ahead and give it a variant of, variant like this. And we're going to have the variant from props. So variant comes from here and icon is also going to come from here. And we're going to remap it to capital icon like that. And let's just quickly write the interface for our info card. So info card. Info card props is going to have number of items to be a number. I completely forgot to write interface here. Sorry. Interface info card props. We're going to have number. We're going to have a variant, which is an optional either default or success, like that. We're also going to have a label, which is a string. We're going to have an icon, which is Lucid icon from Lucid React. So just make sure you add those. And now let's go ahead and attach those info card props to here. Perfect. And now we can extract the number of items, the label as well. Great. And now let's go ahead and pass in the icon as icon right here. Perfect. And great. Now we have our clock icon right here. Below that, let's add a div. And let's write a paragraph here, which is going to render our label. Let's give it a class name of font-medium. And below that, add a new paragraph, which is going to render number of items like that. And then number of items is equal to 1. It's going to be course. Otherwise, it's going to be courses. So in progress, 0 courses like that. And let's write class name text-gray-500 and text small like that. Perfect. So we finished the info card. So as you can see, it says 0 courses in progress. That's because this one is fully completed. So it's no longer in progress, right? And now let's go ahead back inside of page.tsx and let's copy and paste the info card. And let's call this one completed. And it's going to use completed courses length. And the icon for it is going to be check circle. from Lucid React. So just make sure you import check circle, and it's going to have a variant of success like that. And let's just refresh this, and there we go. Now it says that one course is completed, and it says 0 in progress. And if I go inside of this course, right, and let's say I'm going to select wrapping up here, and I'm going to mark it as not completed. So this is going to make this 75% complete. And if I exit now, there we go. Now this one is in progress because it's 75% complete. Perfect. Great job. So what's left to do is to create this analytics tab right here for the teacher. Let's finally wrap up this by creating the analytics page right here. So one action we're going to need before we can actually render anything on the page is going to be called get analytics. So go inside of your actions and write get-analytics like that, .ts. And let's go ahead and let's import database from @/libdb, and let's import course and purchase from @prisma/client. Now let's write type purchase with course to be purchase, and course, which is the type of course. So just make sure you have not misspelled purchase like I did. Great. Now let's write const group by course to be purchases, which accept a purchase with course, which is an array, and write const grouped to be a type of object which has course title, which is a string, which is a number, like that, and an empty array. Now let's go ahead and write purchases dot for each get the individual purchase, const course title is equal to purchase dot course dot title if grouped, if there is no grouped course title, let's go ahead and create it by saying grouped course title to be 0. Otherwise, grouped course title is going to get increased by purchase.course.price, and put an exclamation point at the end because we know we're going to have it. And then just return grouped. Great. So we have our grouping function here. And now let's create export const get analytics. Like that. It's going to be an asynchronous function which takes in the user ID, which is a type of string. You can open a try and catch block. Let's get the error first. And let's go ahead and let's console log get analytics and log the error. And return data to be an empty array, total revenue to be 0, and total sales to be 0 as well. Now let's go back inside of the try group right here, and let's fetch the purchases. So const purchases are await db.purchase.findMany, where course is created by this user, like that. So we use user ID to match, and let's include course of each purchase. Great. Now let's write const grouped earnings. So now we're going to know how much each course has made because of this function right here. So we create an object which with the title of each course, and we calculate the price that it has, right? So now we can write group by course and purchases, like that. Now let's write const data object.entries grouped earnings.map. And let's go ahead and open and write an array course title total. So let me just zoom out a bit and open and return an immediate object name course title and total to be total, like that. And now write const total revenue to be data.reduce, get the accumulator, the current, and just combine the two. So accumulator plus current.total, and begin with 0. And const total sales are just going to be purchases.length. And let's just not misspell the constant here. All right, and what we have to do at the end is return data, total revenue, and total sales. Great, so we have our get analytics function. And now we can go back inside of the analytics page. So let's find it inside of the app folder, dashboard, routes, teacher, and we have the analytics. And let's go ahead and let's mark this as an asynchronous function like that. And let's go ahead and let's import auth from clerk.next.js. Let's import redirect from next/navigation. Let's import get analytics from get analytics. And now let's go ahead and let's get the current user ID using auth. And let's write, if there is no user ID, return redirect to the root page. Otherwise, go ahead and call the get analytics function. So await get analytics with user ID inside. And now let's extract everything we need from here. So data, total revenue, and total sales. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and give this div a class name, padding 6. Let's create a div, which is going to be our grid inside. So grid dash calls dash 1, md grid dash calls dash 2, gap dash 4, and margin bottom of 4 as well. And inside, I want to render a data card component, which we don't have yet. So save this file. We're going to get this error and go inside of analytics and create a new folder _components. And inside, create a new file data-card.tsx. Let's export const data card like that to just be a div saying data card. Let's go back and let's import data card from dot/_components data card like this. Perfect. So now what I want to do is I want to install a ShadCN package called card. So I'm going to shut down this app and I'm going to write npx ShadCN-ui at latest add card like this. Confirm the installation and you can npm run dev your app again. Let's go back inside of the data card here, and first I want to create an interface. So interface data card props value number label string should format an optional boolean. So we're going to reuse the data card 2 times, once to display the number of sales and the other time to display the total revenue. So we're going to use this should format boolean to decide whether we want to format the value, because if it's total revenue, I want it formatted in dollars, but if it's total sales, I just want to display a number. So that's why this is an optional boolean. Perfect. Let's assign these props, data card props, and let's add value, label, and should format. Let's remove this div and instead let's render the card element from add/components UI card. So just make sure you have this. And inside add a card header from add/components UI card again. So I'm just going to start collapsing this so they import in that manner. Let's give this card header a class name of flex -row items -center justify -between and space -y there's 0 and pb-2 like that. Inside open a card title again from add/components UI card and just render a label inside. So make sure you have the card title from here and give this card title a class name text-sm font-medium like that. And let's go back to our page now and go ahead and pass it a label of total sales like that. And refresh your localhost. And now in here, you should have a small card with this label right here. There we go. So it says total sales. And now let's go outside of the card header and let's add card content here from add/components UI card. So make sure you have that. And inside open a div and render should format question mark is going to use format price from add/lib format and go ahead and pass in the value. Otherwise, just display the value. let's go ahead and give this div a class name of text-to-excel and font-bold. Perfect. And now we can go back inside of this data card and we can go ahead and write value to be total sales, like that. Perfect. And now we have total sales 1. And you can copy and paste this and rename this one total revenue and write total revenue inside. And let's add should format. And there we go. Now it looks like dollars. And if I expand, they're next to each other. Perfect. What we have to create now is the chart, right? So let's go ahead and let's install a package called recharts. So I'm going to go inside of my terminal. I'll shut down the app and npm install recharts like this. So just wait for a second to this for this to install. Great. And you can do npm run dev again. And you can refresh this page. And you're gonna go outside of this div, encapsulating this to data cards, and just render the chart component. So we don't have the chart component yet, so we're gonna get an error. So let's go inside of underscore components and create a new file, chart.tsx, like that. And inside, we're gonna mark it as use client and export const chart, like this, and return a div saying chart. Go back to page, and then you can import that from /_components chart the same way we did with data card. And now we have a text saying chart here. So inside, first thing I'm going to do is create an interface chart props. Give it a data, which is an object of and an array, and the object has a name, which is a string, and a total, which is a number. Let's go ahead and let's map those chart props. So we're going to extract data. And now we go back to page and pass in the data to be our data from Get Analytics, like that. And as you can see, it perfectly matches our structure. Great. Now inside of the chart, let's go ahead and let's wrap this entire thing in a card from add/components UI card. So just make sure you add this import. And while we're here, let's go ahead and let's import the following from recharts. So I'm going to add bar chart, responsive container, x-axis, and y-axis, like that. Inside of here, let's go ahead and let's create a responsive cookies, responsive container, which we just imported. Give it a width of 100% and a height of 350. Inside, render the bar chart from recharts, so we have that imported. Pass in the data here to be data. Data. And inside, add an x-axis, which we have imported. It's going to be a self-closing tag. And pass in the data key to be name, stroke to be hashtag 1234556, so 6 8s, like that. Font size to be 12, tick line to be false, axis line to be false as well, like that. And now you can see I have advanced web development here, which is the name of my course. So that's on the x-axis. And now let's create the y-axis, also a self-closing tag. Give it a stroke again of 6 8s, so 1234556. Font size of 12. Tick line is false. Axis line is false. Tick formatter is a function which takes in the value and just returns $$ value, like that. And let's render the bar, which is also self-closing tag, which is going to have a data key of total, fill of hashtag 0369A1, radius, an array of 4, 4, 0, 0, like that. And there we go. We have our chart here. Perfect. Amazing, amazing job. You finished the entire project. So you can now play around and create a couple of more courses. You can play around and add some more chapters, purchase some new courses, and you're going to see how this site is growing. Great. So one more thing I'm going to show you before we deploy. So right now, one thing that I really wanted to do for this project, but didn't manage to do, was implement Stripe Connect. So right now, when I purchase a course, it goes to my global Stripe store, right? So if someone else comes to my page and creates a course, they're not gonna get their cut, right? That's not how this website works. If you wanna do that on your own, you can explore Stripe Connect. Right, the reason I didn't do it for this tutorial is because the setup for it seemed like I needed to have a ready business to start. So I didn't really understand how I was going to explain that, especially to beginners who are watching this. So I skipped it for now because obviously I don't have enough knowledge in that area. But I am going to explore it for some future projects because it's something that we need to understand and I hope that we can build one day. So what I am going to show you for this is how to make this course platform your own so that only you or maybe 1 or 2 user IDs can create courses and everyone else can only purchase and watch them. So that's one more thing I'm going to show you how to do before we move on to something else. So now if you want to, you can follow this part of the video so I can show you how to protect this teacher mode so that only a specific user can see it and so that only specific user can create courses and everyone else can just watch them and purchase them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and inside of my lib folder create a new file teacher.ts. And inside of here, I'm going to go and write export const isTeacher, which is going to accept a user ID, which is going to be an optional string or null, like that. Go ahead and return user ID and compare it to process.environment.next_public_teacher_ID, like that. And I'll copy this and go to your environment file and paste it here. And in here, you put the user ID that you want to be a teacher for this website. So you can go that by going to clerk.com, select the project, go inside of users and find the user that you want. And then just copy the user ID like that. And that's it. That's all we need from Clerk. And go inside and paste that right here. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and let's protect our navbar. So this teacher mode only applies to that user. So I'm going into navbar routes, which is inside of our components folder. So our global components. And in here we have a button teacher mode, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, well, first I'm going to fetch the user ID, right? So this is a client component. So we have to do that using const user ID from useout from Clerk. So make sure you imported useout from Clerk right here. And then make sure you import isTeacher from s/libteacher. And now we're going to extend this ternary here by adding isTeacher user ID, like that. Another question mark here, which is going to render this link. Otherwise, we render null, like that. So a double ternary here, just like that. Perfect. And as you can see, the teacher mode is still visible here, right? But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to log out into another user and see if it's still visible for the other user. And there we go. I logged out. And now the teacher mode cannot be seen from the navbar here, right? So I can only browse the courses which are published. And as you can see in this account, I have not purchased this course, so I'm seeing the price here. Perfect. So now I'm gonna go back and show you how to protect with the other things. Well, in fact, I don't have to go back, right? So it's better if I keep in this guest account, right? So this one that cannot see the teacher mode. But what I can do is I can still manually go to /teacher/courses like this. So I can still do this, right? And then I can click on the new course and there we go. I can now create a new course. Well, we want to protect from that as well. So the way I'm going to do that, well, I'm going to kind of experiment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go inside of the app folder, inside of the dashboard, inside of routes, teacher right here. And I'm going to create a layout file here. So I'm just going to try it out. I'm not sure if this is going to work. So we're trying out this together. And I'm going to write SFC teacher layout. We need the children, right? And let's map the children to be react.react node. And inside, just go ahead and return the children. I think we can we just do that? Maybe we need a fragment at least. So children like this. And nothing should change much. There we go. So everything is still working inside. But what I'm going to do is I'm gonna get the user ID from auth using clerk.next.js, and then I'm gonna write if exclamation point is teacher. So if the teacher is not this user ID, return redirect from next/navigation back to the root page, like that. And there we go. So that works. So if I manually try to go to teacher courses, I'm redirected back. And since this is a layout file, it's going to apply to all of those inner files as well. Perfect. So we protected our front end. And now what we have to do is, using that same logic, also protect our backend. So we have to go inside of the API file right here. And let's go ahead inside of the upload thing first, inside of core right here, and we're going to modify the handle auth. So we're also going to write const is authorized to be is teacher from /lib teacher and pass in user ID, like that. So just make sure you have the is teacher, and we're going to write if it's not user ID or if it's not authorized, throw the error, like that. So now only the teacher can upload files. Perfect. And now what we have to do is we have to go inside of courses, and let's go ahead and let's protect the creation of the courses. So if there is no user ID, or if it's not a teacher user ID, so whenever I add is teacher, just remember you have to add that using a lib teacher, like that. So if it's not a teacher, it's going to respond to unauthorized. So this is if someone bypasses the front end and directly uses the API. We're also going to protect that. Great. So we have the protection of the creating the course. And now let's go ahead and protect deleting the course. So again, or if it's not a teacher, user ID, and we have to do the same thing in the patch function below once more. So if it's not a teacher, again, user ID, like that. We did that. Now we have to go to attachments. So for creating an attachment again, if it's not a teacher, make sure you import that, user ID. Great. Now go inside of attachment ID. Do the same thing for deleting. If it's not a teacher, user ID. And we have to do, that's it. So we cannot update attachments. Great. So attachments are done. Now for the chapters. So same thing. So if you're not a teacher, user ID, like that. Even though I think it's enough for us to just protect creating of the chapters. Yeah, I believe this is actually enough. We just have to protect creating the chapter, creating the attachments, and creating the courses. Because if we cannot create a course with our user ID, because we are not a teacher, we're also not gonna be able to delete or update or modify, because we always look for the owner ID. So I believe we didn't have to add it to attachments as well, right? But you get the point. So you have to add it, you have to try it out yourself and see where else you need to add it. I believe that it's enough that you just add it to courses route.ts. So this is the important one, the post function of the course. Make sure that it needs to be a teacher to create a course. Yeah, I think that's enough, because if you don't have a course, in that case, you can't create attachments, you can't create chapters. Yeah, so I'm actually going to remove it from the chapters like this. I'm going to remove this from the chapters. So let me just modify it like this. Yeah, sorry for that, but I'm just trying this out now as I write this. So the layout one is important. It's important that it's in the API courses in the post function, but it doesn't need to be in deleting and updating the course. It doesn't need to be there, because if we cannot create it, it doesn't matter. Great. So the only one I changed in the API in the end is the upload thing right here, and I changed the course post route. So that's the only things that I changed. And from the front end, I did the navbar routes, and I added a layout to teacher layout so it redirects the user, and I created this util themselves. Great. And now what I want to just check is just confirm that I can go back to the old user, which has the user ID, and still create a course. So just to check that we didn't mess something up. All right, so I'm back here. I can click on teacher mode and I'm not redirected back. Let's create a new course, test, like that. Let's see if it's gonna work, and there we go. So it's still working. Perfect. So we can still create courses if we are an admin. Perfect. Amazing, amazing job. You completed the entire thing. What I'm going to show you now is quickly how to deploy it to Vercel. So deploying to Vercel is going to be quite simple. So let's go inside of our app right here. And first thing I want to do is I want to go inside of package.json right here. And I'm going to add a new script here named post install. Like that, and go ahead and write Prisma generate. Like that. Perfect. Once that is done, let's go ahead inside of our project, shut down the app. You can shut down the Stripe tool and go ahead and write git add and git commit final, like that. So just commit everything you have in your project. Now go to the GitHub and create a new repository. So this one is going to be LMS-tutorial. It's going to be private in my case, and I'm just going to create a repository. After this is created, go ahead and pick this option, an existing repository. So you can just copy these files, these lines, and paste them here, and just press enter. And that's going to push that to this repository. So I can refresh the file now. And there we go. It's all right here. You can see all of my code. And now we go to vercel.com and we click add new project. And in here, I have this new LMS tutorial. So I'm going to click right here. And what we have to do is we have to go inside of our .environment file and copy everything inside. So just select everything and copy. And go ahead and click on environment variables, pick the first field, and just paste the entire thing inside. Now, obviously, there are two things we're going to have to change. We're going to have to change Stripe webhook secret and next public app URL. But we can only do that after we deploy, because we don't know what the URL is going to be. So click deploy, and let's wait for this to finish. So I'm going to pause the screen. If I get any errors, I'm going to show you how to resolve it. If not, we're going to continue with changing the variables. There we go. So my project deployed without any issues. So now I have to find the domain for this LMS tutorial, right? So in my case, it is lms-tutorial.vercel.app. So I can go ahead and open and visit that application and then redirect it to the sign in page. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my URL link right here, or you can copy it from here, right? And now we have to go inside of settings of this project. So let me just expand this so it's exactly as you see it. So go inside of settings. Just make sure you're in the LMS tutorial here. Go ahead and copy the domain you have. Go into settings and go inside of environment variables. And go ahead and find the next public app URL and change that to the new one. So HTTPS LMS tutorial and remove the backslash like this, and go ahead and copy this. So don't remove this already, and click save. All right, and now we have to change the Stripe webhook secret. So we have to go back into Stripe right here and select developers again, go back to webhooks, and as you can see, we have a local listener here, which is our localhost 3000 API webhook. We now have to add a new endpoint with our website, right? So just make sure you're in test mode here and click add endpoint under the hosted endpoints here. And go ahead, now I have to confirm my password, so I'm just gonna do that. All right, after I've confirmed my password, now I have this option, listen to Stripe events and add an endpoint. So what I have to do is add my endpoint URL. So that's going to be my page, which I just deployed, which is lms-tutorial.vercel.app/webhook. So the same thing that it was, but instead it was localhost, right? Well, now it's my website /API/webhook. And we have to click select events. And we have to find checkout and go ahead and select checkout.session.completed. So that's the only one we are looking for. And click add events and click add endpoint like this. And now click on signing secret, reveal, and copy this secret. Go back inside of the environment variables, find the Stripe webhook secret and change that as well. There we go. And click save. Perfect. And now that you save that, go back to your deployments, pick the working one and click redeploy. and don't check this, and just click redeploy like that. So again, I'm gonna pause this and wait for this deploy to finish. And there we go. So another successful deployment. And now I'm gonna go ahead and visit my website again. So you can either use this link, which is a specific deployment, but the real link is this one, so the short one. So I'm gonna open this app again, and I'm gonna go ahead and log in with my other account. So I logged in into an account where I am not the teacher and where I haven't purchased any courses yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and test the webhook endpoint now. As you can see, it's waiting for events. So I'm gonna attempt to purchase this course now. There we go, I have the preview. And just remember, if you wanna remove this max box right here, and if you want your videos to be longer than 10 seconds, you have to add a credit card to max. And even then you have a generous free tier. But if you just wanna use it for API test purposes, this is completely fine. I'm gonna click on enroll here, and I'm gonna get redirected to the Stripe checkout page. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and use a dummy page here, a dummy name, and I'm going to click pay. And let's go ahead and look right here if there are any events going on. I'm gonna refresh here. Let's see, and there we go. Checkout session completed, 200 OK, which should mean that I officially purchased this course and it's completely unlocked. I can mark it as complete. I can go outside, and there we go. Great job. You finished the entire project. And I'm so happy you watched this to the end. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.